This lecture is going to be on just one topic, buying a house or a car. So we're going to be figuring out how to figure out the payment of an installment loan if you were to buy a house or a car. And it's from sections 8.6 and 8.7 in your book if you need more information. Now, one way to find the installment payment or the payment on your installment loan is to use this formula right here. And we're actually going to do that. It looks kind of scary because of so many variables and stuff, but I'll show you how to use it. But what I want to tell you is this. You can search, I'll highlight down here. You can search online if you just search loan calculator or payment calculator and use one of those items that come up probably as one of the first or second choices when you search that will be a good payment calculator online, and you just enter what we're going to be seeing here in a second, the months and the interest rate and stuff, and that payment calculator online should tell you your payment. I checked 3 of them and they all 3 worked just fine. I don't want to show you how to do that because I'm not sure what the legalities of me showing another website is on a YouTube video. I am going to show you though how to find payments using your graphing calculator. So that's what I'm going to do first. Then I'll show you how to use this formula here. And like I said, you can then check it against the loan calculator that you use from online. Guarantee if you Google loan calculator and then use the very first option, I bet it works just fine. It did for me. All right, now let's talk about buying a car. You go decide to buy a car that costs $7,000 and you're going to make a down payment of $1,000 on it, which means you're financing the remainder, which is $6,000. The dealerships say they're going to offer you 6% interest rate over a 4-year period. Then they come back and they tell you your payments are going to be $165.24 over 4 years on that used car. And you can just trust them and go with it, or you can say, wait a minute, I'm going to double check this. So let's take a look on my graphing calculator here. Let's go to, you're going to go to apps right here. And the very first option is finance. And the first option there is TVM solver, time value money solver. We want that. And if you take a look, I've already entered this, but the number of payments is 48 because a 4-year period, 12 months a year, that's 48. Let's say you're not very good at math. You know that you want 4 years and 12 payments a year. I can just put 4 times 12 there and it'll put 48 for me. Okay, interest rate is 6. Principal value is $6,000. We're borrowing $6,000. And make sure down here that if it doesn't already say 12, you want 12 for payments per year. Once you put 12 once, it should stay at 12 unless you change it. Now, for payment, it might have some other number there. I have 0 there right now. To find your payment, you simply hit alpha, enter. Because if you look down here, there's a green word solve right above the enter button. So alpha is the green button. Hitting enter gives you the solution. It solves it for you. And you can see the payment is $140.91. So take a look here. That particular auto dealership told you it was going to be $165.24 when in actuality it was $140.91, if I remember right. That's what it said. Now, the reason I bring this up is because I've shopped for cars at a couple different dealerships, and I've brought my graphing calculator with me, and at 2 different dealerships, one in this state that I live in and one in another state, they've tried to tell me my payment was about $20 to $25 more than it actually was. So use your smartphone to use a payment calculator on that when you go to buy a car, or your graphing calculator to keep these guys honest. I'm just saying what's happened to me, and I don't want it to happen to you. So let's find out if indeed my graphing calculator gave me the right answer, because supposedly this formula here is supposed to give us the payment. Well, to find the payment, we need to know what all these variables mean. P is your principal, so this P is the principal. It's how much you're borrowing. The R is your interest rate, but look, the interest rate has to be as a decimal, so keep that in mind. And N is the number of payments per year, which is 12. This N and this N are both going to be 12 for the payments per year, as well as that N right there. So what we're going to have here to find out our payment, our principal is $6,000. Our interest rate is not 6, it's 0.06, because remember, the interest rate has to be a decimal, over 12. And that's our numerator, and that's all going to be over 1 minus 1 plus 0.06 over 12. And that parentheses right there is going to be raised to the power of negative 12 times 4, because it says negative n times t. And remember, t is time in years, and we're going to get this loan out for a 4-year period. Okay, so let's see if we get $140.91 like we're supposed to using our calculator with that information. So let's go back to our calculator. Let's exit the app. Oh, to get rid of the app, you hit second quit. Second mode is quit. Okay. I believe our principal was 6,000, and I was supposed to take that times 0.06 divided by 12. Okay, that's my numerator. I'm going to hit enter. So my numerator is 30, and I'm supposed to divide that by my denominator. My denominator is parenthesis 1 minus parenthesis 1 plus 0.06 divided by 12. And then I'm supposed to raise that parenthesis to the power of a negative 12 times 4. So I'm going to hit this caret button, which brings me up to the power of negative 4 or negative 12. In fact, I'm going to put this in parentheses. I don't need to, because of the way this calculator is. If yours doesn't actually put it up there in the exponent like mine does, you might have to put parentheses around negative 12 times 4, or just be safe and put negative 48 there. And then I'm going to exit that and put a parenthesis here. So there we go. I'm going to take 30, which it says answer there, because that was my 30 was my answer for the numerator. I'm going to divide it by all of this, and I get $140.91. Now remember, that's what our calculator gave us as well. So that's it for this lesson, but I really want to show you something about buying a house. Let's say your uncle just bought a house that cost $275,000, and he made a down payment of $30,000. Okay, so if it cost $275,000 and he made a down payment of $30,000, do you agree that he is borrowing $245,000? Because you subtract that, and down payment means you're making payment before you even start financing, which reduces how much you're financing. So the principal is going to be $245,000. The interest rate is 4.5 over 30 years. Now this is a typical, fairly decent house, depending where you're living at in the country, with a typical interest rate for 30 years, which is really typical of bankers to do also. So let's see what we get. Let's use our app, Finance TVM. Now I need to go 30 years, which is 360 months. And we said 4.5%, which is fairly pretty correct for when I'm making this, the time that I'm making this video. That's about what interest rates are right now. And the principal value, the person's borrowing $245,000. Now, does this mean my payment's $140.91? Nope, I haven't hit alpha solve yet. I wish that's what my payment was. So that gives me a payment of $1,241.38 if I round. $1,241.38. Now, if you have a chance, get online and enter that information on a payment calculator and see if you get $1,241.38. If you do, it means that's a reputable calculator online. $1,241.38, I think is what I got. Let me double check that. Yep, $1,241.38. Now, so that's an example of buying a house. Of everything I've taught you this year and everything I'm going to teach you this year, this next slide might be the most important as far as real life situations, because if you haven't bought a house yet, I know some of you guys are 19 years old that are taking this class, and some of you might be 30 years old or older. Some might be as old as me, but if you're going to buy a house in the future, pay really close attention here. This is a person that's going to buy a house for $250,000 for 30 years at 5% interest. we're going to figure out the payments on that. Then we're going to say, oh, instead of, let's get that same home for 250,000 at 5% interest, but let's finance it for just 15 years instead of 30 years. All right. And we're going to find out how much more you're actually paying for that house. So here we go. I'm going to go to my calculator. 30 years is 360 months. And I said 6% interest, I think. Did I say 6%? I'm going to double check. 5%. 5% interest. And it was a $250,000 loan we're taking out. All right. Now, I'm hitting alpha enter to find my payment. 1342.05. 1342.05. So look at $1,342.05. Now, let's figure out what that is. I'm going to quit this. 1342.05. We're going to take that times 360 payments, because you're going to make that payment over a 30-year period, 360 times, and you are paying $483,138. $483,138. Now, hang in there with me. $483,138. I want you to see something here. That's how much you're really paying for that house. Now let's do that same house for $250,000, but finance it for 15 years. So let's go back to the calculator. Let's go to apps, enter. All we have to change is 360 to 180, because 180 is 15 years times 12 months. Everything else stays the same. Come down here and let's hit the payment, and we get 1976.98. 1976.98. 1976.98. So $1,976.98. Watch what happens to this. Now let's take that 1976.98. Like I said, this might be one of the most important things I've taught you this year. Multiply that times 15 years, which is 180 payments, and we get 355,856. 355,856. 355,856. I have to keep saying it so I don't forget it. Sorry. 355,856. So look at that. If you take this number here and subtract that number from it, you're going to get about 130,000. Not exactly, but somewhere you would save about $130,000 by financing your home for 15 years instead of 30 years. Okay. Now I understand maybe somebody could afford these payments, but couldn't afford these payments. But if there's any way you can swing it, if you can borrow the money for a shorter period of time, you're going to save a lot of money in the long run. So that's the lesson for today. The main thing is find a way that you can find the correct payment when buying a house or a car, whether it's using this formula or using a payment calculator online or using a graphing calculator. And I think that's it for all the lectures in this chapter. Goodbye.